Welcome, all of you sensitive and intuitive souls out there. This is Bevan Neiman Cortez, one of your co-hosts for this event. And I'm so excited to bring to the conversation today Tree Franklin, who is a best-selling author, founder of the Empathic Awakening Academy, and a spiritual coach who teaches soul-centered women how to transcend their ordinary everyday lives so they can reconnect with who they truly are and create a life of deep meaning and purpose. Welcome, Tree. So happy to have this conversation with you.
Hi, Bevan. Nice to be here. So honored. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we're going to talk about such an interesting conversation today. It's such an interesting topic, how to trust the universe and surrender into the flow of life. So I guess my first question for you, Tree, is when you see a lot of things around you, as we do in modern society, that are not okay or even chaotic or dramatic, how do you trust that everything's going to turn out okay?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because there's so much, you want to say badness, or so much struggle and so much chaos and just so much conflict in this world that we're like, how are we supposed to trust that everything's going to go well when not only do we see it out there, but for ourselves, it's been proven not to go very well for us, right? So how do we trust that? I think for me, having struggled with trust pretty much my whole life, and finally coming to the realization that what I was doing to try to trust was trying to make God or universe or divine or whatever you want to call it. I call it God, whatever that greater power is for you. I was trying to take God down to my level. And what I mean by that is that I think I shared this in my course with you guys, the Shift Network. So there are 3 fundamental infinite truths, right? 1 is everything is energy. 2 is you are a soul. And 3 is there is a transcendental plane. And plane meaning like a transcendental dimension, the transcendent, right? And so when we try to trust a God, a universe, a greater than ourselves being, what we try to do is put that God into our human plane, our human dimension, and we can't limit source in that way, right? We can't. We want source to comply to our human rules and our human needs. But really, there's a transcendental plane that's so much bigger than all of that. And so the first step is to realize that there's something bigger than this reality that we see, that we all around us, all this conflict and all this contradiction and all this chaos. There's something bigger than that. And when we try to expand our being and expand our presence and our consciousness to embrace that bigger, broader view, then it's easier to trust, if that makes any sense.
It absolutely does. And I love what you're talking about here, these different dimensions of understanding and reality and manifestation. And the one that I struggle with the most, I think, is the timeline, right? Like I have a certain timeline that I want things to happen. And a lot of times it doesn't work that way. And so I totally understand. I'm sure people that are listening can relate to what you're saying. So for highly sensitive people, why can it be difficult for us to let go of our doubts and insecurity and learn how to trust?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're so self-reflective. We internalize a lot of things, right? So if something happens out in the world, and let's say we try to trust and it doesn't happen, then we sort of internalize and we're like, oh, well, I did something wrong. I don't believe enough. I didn't let go enough. I'm still holding on. I'm trying to control. And we just sort of, because we're so introspective and we're aware of ourselves, that we just take it all in, right? And it makes it harder for us when we totally overanalyze everything and we try to figure things out. And we think of highly sensitive people and empathic people. We sort of see a lot of different perspectives. And so we take all those different perspectives into us, and we like look at it from all these different perspectives. And sometimes it's just too much. Sometimes we just need to focus in on one perspective, which is God's perspective or a universal perspective. So I think that when you were talking about the timeline, there are three different levels of living. So there's horizontal level, which is if you think of the horizon line, there's the horizontal level. And on the horizontal level, it's very focused on the material. It's cause and effect, good and bad, black and white. There's problem solution. If we are, let's say, using an example, if we don't have any money, right, and we're living on the horizontal plane, where we have to take physical action, we have to get a job, go apply, go on interviews, look for a job, we have to go work, we have to work harder, we have to try to get a raise, we have to try to get a better job, whatever it is that we need to do to make more money if that's our perceived problem. So that's on the horizontal plane. And then there's the vertical plane, which is what a lot of us do. We visualize. We're like, okay, there's more to the horizontal plane, right? There's more to this physical reality. So we either visualize, we pray, we do affirmations, we try to increase our gratitude vibes, we try to feel more abundant, we understand energy. And so we try to work on it from an energetic level. And we sort of like expand our vision upward to spirit, source, holy, whatever we want to call it. And so instead of living on this horizontal level, we're now vertical. So we don't have any money. That's our problem. So now we're going to go sit and meditate and try to get those gratitude vibes and those abundance vibes and like increase our vibration so that more money can come in. So that's the vertical way of living. And then there's also a dimensional way of living. And the dimensional way of living is to know the transcendent plane, right? To acknowledge that there's a transcendent level, right? There's a transcendent dimension. And so the dimensional living is you don't have any money and, it could be the same exact problem, but instead of trying to either one, solve the problem by taking physical action on the horizontal plane, or two, solving the problem of no money by visualizing and putting up vision boards and meditating. That's the vertical way of doing it. Instead of that, if you're living on the transcendent dimension, then you recognize that there really is no problem and that whether you have money or you don't have money, it's not a problem. Does that make sense? And it's hard to do that because we have bills to pay. And we're like, but I can't tell my landlord, hey, I'm on the transcendent and I don't have the money, but hey, I'm living on the transcendent dimension. Right? We can't do that. But the transcendent, on the dimensional living, we recognize both horizontal and we recognize both vertical. So we recognize that we're here on Earth in this dense vibrational planet. And we also recognize that everything is energy. So that's the vertical way of living. And we just sort of holistically blend those together and recognize that neither one of those is the end all and the be all. It's a whole picture. Long answer to the question, but I hope that helps.
Yeah, it's really fantastic because, I've done both of those things, right? And I love your analogy. Like, I'll just tell my landlord, I'm on the transcendent plane. We'll see how far that floats unless your landlord's really into metaphysics, right? But I love that you're saying the transcendent plane, at least this is what I think I hear you saying, that it's not transcending or spiritually bypassing your problems. It's realizing that you need to have a holistic solution. And that happens by kind of being able to pull yourself out and away from the intensity of it, perhaps, and then look at it from a different perspective altogether.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You're dead on right. It's not becoming an ascetic and just like denying everything. So we're definitely not spiritually bypassing. When you live on a dimensional level, you're seeing all the different dimensions. So you are acknowledging there's no money in my bank account. And you are acknowledging I can go get a job and get money to put into that bank account. You're also acknowledging I can also meditate and visualize and do the vision boards and also bring money in that way as well, both together or one or the other. Usually we do both, right? Us who are a little more spiritually conscious, we don't just live in the horizontal plane. We try to do both of those. right? Maybe we do the second one, we meditate for a while, for like months, and then the money doesn't come. And we're like, oh crap, now I need to get a job. And then we live on that level. But when you live multidimensionally, then you acknowledge all three of those levels, and you no longer deny. Because I think a lot of the, when The Secret came out, a lot of us were denying, we're putting aside, our lack and all of this stuff. And we were really denying it and avoiding it. We're resisting it. We're thinking if we avoid it long enough, then the money will come and then we can pay off all those bills. That's how I got bankrupt, by the way, because I did it that way. And I literally went bankrupt over 10 years ago because I was doing that. I'm like, just put it aside, put it aside, put it aside. Don't focus on it. But I was really spiritually bypassing it. I was just making up excuses, hoping that one day the money will come. And it never really did until I took action on the physical plane and got a job and also continued to visualize and all that. And then recognize that there's multi dimensions to how we can live, and we can combine all of those things together.
The phrase that comes to me as you're speaking is God helps those who help themselves. We can pray, we can manifest, we can visualize and do all of those things. And then we still need to take action in the physical reality and really look and face it. And I love that you're bringing this in here. And so earlier you spoke a lot about trust, right? And how this has been such a big part of your life. And you say that empaths are actually naturally inclined to trust, which might be surprising to people who are listening. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so we empaths, we fundamentally feel, right? We feel that there's something more to life. You can talk to my husband, and he's not an empath, and he would say there's nothing more. There's just earth, dirt, sky, life, get a job, get married, have kids, then you die, right? And that's it. But for us, we feel that there's something more, there's something deeper, and we just fundamentally feel that within ourselves. Like we know this, and we may doubt it, but in our deepest moments of purity, when we're either meditating or we're just in the flow, we're just having a moment of absolute presence in this now, we know that there's something more to this whole thing that everybody calls life, getting a job, getting married, making money, paying bills, etc. We know that there's so much more to that. And especially when we go into nature, we feel it a lot, which is why I love your background, by the way. we feel the power of nature, of the trees and the grass and everything around us. Whereas other people are like, oh, I'm just walking in the forest. And we're like, are you crazy? There's a whole life here happening in this forest. Can you not feel all the energy? And we empaths and intuitives, we just know this. We just feel it. We can't really explain it, but we just know it. And so that helps us to trust, because we already know that there's something bigger than ourselves. So we already know that something made all those trees grow. Like the trees aren't working for a living to grow. They're just growing, and they're becoming bigger, and they're living hundreds of years. So there's a part of us that inherently already knows this. And when we can tap into this knowing, and we can live more from the place of this knowing of that there is something bigger than us, and there's something greater that's making this planet orbit and making the universe, stay in place. When we can take that knowing and strengthen it, then we've got it. Then we don't really have to try too hard to trust. Whereas somebody who doesn't quite believe in that kind of stuff, it's going to be a lot harder for them to trust, because it's not already there. With empaths, it's inherent in us. We already know this.
Yeah, and if it's okay, and with your permission, I'll ask this question. Because you and your partner are have a different philosophy about life, a different perceptive experience of life. And I'm sure there are other people out there who either have, people in their family system, or their spouse, or their children, or whoever, who may not actually see it that way, may not actually feel that oneness. How have you worked through that process to accept each other, to understand his perspective and your perspective?
Yeah, well, we all have to, we're all on different levels of consciousness, right? I have to understand that he's on whatever level of consciousness, no lower or higher in the sense that one's less than the other, But this is how our brain works. We can see levels as it goes higher, right? But so if he's on this level of consciousness, it's not my place to put him on this level or put him on this level of consciousness. It's not my place to do that. He has his own path, and he has his own journey, and he has his own lessons and his own reasons for being here. So who am I to say, hey, you can't be believing that. You got to believe this because this is what I believe in. He's not there, and I'm not here. I've been where he is, where I didn't believe in anything, but I also feel like inherently I always did. I just lost my way. But it doesn't mean that he's lost his way. It just means he's on a certain level of consciousness, just like we can't expect a 5-year-old, you can't rationalize with a 5-year-old and say, well, you're not allowed to do this because you can't cross the street without looking because the car is going to hit you. And they're like, so what if the car hits me? You're like, oh, you can't rationalize with that, right? You just can't. And so they're on a different level. So that's how I see everybody. We're all, and it's not about being better than or holier than or more enlightened than, because we're all on different levels. There's not really I don't want him to be anywhere than where he is now. And I wouldn't want him to expect me to be anywhere that I'm not and try to force me to see what he sees. So we get along in that way because neither of us try to expect the other person to see what the other person sees. And I don't even expect him to understand me. Hardly anybody understands me anyway. So I would say us, right? Hardly anybody ever understands us empaths anyway, and our like fluctuating energy and everything. So I don't expect him to understand me, and I don't expect myself to understand him.
And that's such an important shift, I think, for sensitive people, that when we stop expecting people to understand us, when we're worried or focused more on understanding ourselves and being okay with that and affirming our own self, affirming everyone else can have your journey, just like you said, it really changes things, right? So you don't need to prove anything. You don't have to make sure that people know, or you don't have to fix or rescue them anymore, right? And this is about trusting. Again, if we're going back to and circling back, trusting that everything is moving in its right rhythm for every person and every being on the planet. Are there specific ways that you found to help empaths become more trusting, to be able to let go of that desire to have everyone understand us or feel good about it, or be able to see the oneness the way we can? How can they do that?
Yeah, so I started on that journey the same way everybody starts on the journey, right? You try to trust and you leap and hope the net appears, and then you try to trust again, and then this and this and this. And you just build that trust. And I've learned that I just sort of crashed on all of that. I just crashed bomb land on the bottom, and it hurts like hell. So instead of doing all that and working within and trying to increase my level of trust, I started I journal a lot. But in my journaling, I was like, how do I get to trust you more, God? How do I trust you? And I was getting all these intuitive hits, and it would be silly, sometimes so insignificant things, like if I'm walking down the street to a store, for example, right? And then I feel a sense, or I get an intuition or just a thought in my head, oh, you should cross the street. And I have no reason why I should cross the street because the store is on this side of the street and I'm almost there. But I would listen to that anyway, and I would just cross the street. And then I would keep heading towards the store, right? And if nothing would happen when I crossed the street, I'd be like, well, that was weird. I just sort of wasted some steps and wasted some time to cross the street. This is a small example, but I'll explain why it's so powerful. So I would just cross the street, and then I would get to the other end, and then I have to cross the street again and get to the store. But all these little hits, I would start to trust those hits, and whatever messages would be, cross the street, or get in the car and drive the extra block, or leave work 5 minutes early, or come to, the soccer practice 5 minutes late, or whatever it may be. And if there's no reason or rationality behind it, especially after I did it, like if I cross the street and a car suddenly crashed over here, and I'm like, oh, thank you, God, you saved me, right? That was an intuitive hit, and that was great, wonderful intuitive hit. But if nothing happened, and I still have no idea why I was told to cross the street, then I start to question, are those intuitive hits real? What I'm trying to tell you is don't question that. Just follow the intuitive hits. So if you're going down to the store and you have a thought, maybe you should cross the street, because you want to trust for the sake of trust. You don't want to trust for the sake of a reason for something happening, to get something, to gain something, to learn something. You just want to trust for the sake of trust. So all those little things I recommend, start listening. And you can even say, well, what do you want me to do now, source, or whoever it is that you're talking to? What do you want me to do now? And you might hear, go wash your face. I don't know. And then just go wash your face. And you're like, okay, well, that was kind of why I just washed my face 5 minutes ago. Do it anyway. So the more and more and more we do this, the more we learn to trust for the sake of trust and for the sake of listening, right? We're just doing without expecting a big reason, without expecting a big result. And that's how we can learn to gain the bigger trust. And then we can leap, and then the net will appear because we've built that trust. And when we get to that point, we already know I'm just trusting for the sake of trusting. I'm no longer trusting because I think you're going to deliver what I want you to deliver me. That's kind of a conditional sort of trust. And we don't want that. So those little tiny, insignificant little things, people want big answers. Those little tiny insignificant things, just follow them, and say, I have no idea why I'm doing this, but you told me to, okay, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, it's kind of how all of life works. You do one thing and then it leads to another and it leads to another. And then, if you could look back when the big thing does show up, you're like, oh, look at all those steps I took and how I was practicing that. As a matter of fact, I go into my closet every morning and I look at all the clothes and I, was getting ready for your and my conversation today. And I thought, wonder what I should wear. And I picked this particular cape that has this light blue color. And then of course you show up on camera with the same color. And I was like, isn't that funny how we can really tune in to that consciousness?
And what's funny is I actually had a black shirt with designs on it. I think they were like green and purple. And then I was like, just too busy with all the stuff in the background. I'm just going to wear this blue one because I just felt the resonance for the blue. So.
And so here we are, right? Here we are. I love that you're talking about a net, right? Because when we take leaps, whether it's just a small thing or like a major, major shift or change that we're going to make in our lives, we want to feel like there's a safety net, right? That's a part of the horizontal, I think, the keeping us safe part. But sometimes that safety net doesn't seem to appear. And then we blame ourselves for not believing hard enough, on that vertical plane, not manifesting enough. How can we kind of shift that relationship to that blame or shame or self-criticism?
Yeah, so I have this thing about this net, this darn net that's been following me around my whole lives and not there when I wanted it, not there when I jumped or leaped, and I just crash land really, really hard on like hard, dark pavement, and it hurts so bad. And then you have to pick yourself back up, and then you've lost all sense of trust that you might have worked yourself too, right? So I had this love-hate relationship with the net for a while. And with that saying, I was like, well, the net appears for you, but it's not appearing for me. Why is it appearing for everybody else? So then we start to think, well, maybe I'm not worthy of it. Maybe that person deserved more, whatever it is that they got, more money, more love, more, happiness. And when I leaped, it wasn't there for me. Like God wasn't listening to me. And so something must be wrong with me. Or something must be wrong with the God that I think exists, right? Or source. So I think the problem with leap and the net will appear is that it's not the full story. And it leaves everybody, 7 billion people on this planet, to interpret it 7 billion different ways. So the net, we put our conditions on the net. Everybody has a different idea of what the net is. And depending on what we're going through in our lives, the net becomes something different. So going back to, let's say we don't have enough money, right? Going back to that example, just for consistency, we don't have enough money. So, or let's say we have a job and we want to pursue our passion. We want to make money through that passion. So we're going to say, well, a lot of people do this. I'm going to quit my job, God, and I'm just praying that this net is going to appear. Money, right? Where the net for us in this moment is money. I'm going to go all in on my business or my passion, and I'm going to hope that the money follows the passion. So this is the net that I want you to lay down for me when I quit my job. When I quit my job, I want you to deliver money, and I'm going to do the work. I'm going to follow my passion, and that's how the money is going to follow. So we've already limited this net, and we've already defined this net for an unlimited source, right? We define the net. We said the net is going to be money. Or if we're lonely and we, just met someone and we're just going to take a chance, we're like, okay, God, I'm going to take this chance on this guy or this girl. I don't know if they're it, but I'm just going to leap in and I hope they're good. And so you're going to deliver this net for me, which is in the form of a good soulmate that I can be with for the rest of my life and be happy with, right? So we decide the net. We're the ones who put the condition on the net. And we're saying, God, I will trust you. I'm going to leap, and I trust that you're going to throw this net down for me. And then I will trust you even more. And then I'll believe you even more. Then I'll be able to let go of these doubts. But the thing is, we're the ones who created that net. We're trying to make infinite God finite. We're trying to bring God down to our horizontal and our vertical level of living, where God doesn't live there. Universe doesn't live there. Universe is expansive, right? And so when we do this and we fall and the money doesn't come, the net doesn't appear, the lover doesn't show up, and we're like, crap, now I got to find another job. Now I got to amp up my passion, or now I have to figure out what else to do. Then we feel disappointed, we feel angry, we feel let down. But really, we're the ones who put that condition on ourselves, right? We're the ones who demanded that God give us what we want in the way that we wanted it. And it doesn't work that way. So instead, the net is, instead of what we define the net to be, the net is actually God. God is the net. So God doesn't want us to rely on money, right? God wants us to rely on God. The universe doesn't want us to rely on our lover to bring us happiness. The universe wants us to rely on the universe to bring us happiness, for truth, right? And purity and wisdom. And so what we're trying to do with this whole net thing, first of all, if you think about it, the net is a physical thing on the physical plane. And we already know that there's a transcendent plane. So whenever we're hoping for this net to appear, we need to know that the universe is the net, and the universe wants us to rely on the universe, not on our idea of what this net is. Right? Does it make sense?
Yeah. So let's talk about kind of that tension point between being a planner, as most sensitive people are, and surrender. There's this whole, which one do I do? How much do I do one? How much do I do another? What if I don't plan anything and just take whatever comes? Or if I try to plan most things, but then occasionally I'll let go. So, what have you discovered about that balance?
Yeah, so I've discovered, first of all, it's a sense of knowing, right? They're going back to that transcendent. There's a sense of knowing that there's something greater than ourselves, right? So we carry that sense of knowing with us, and we go and we live in this world, and we get the job, interview for the job if we need to. We take the physical action, and we also do the visualizations. So we live on both those levels, but on a broader perspective, we acknowledge that there's something greater than both of these ways of being, right? And we acknowledge that these are just tools for us to know where we are in our knowledge in our consciousness of the transcendent. What I mean by, I know it's probably confusing. What I mean by that is, so you have the thought, I don't have enough money, right? I don't know why we're going into money a lot today, but that's the thought, just keeping with the theme. We have the thought, I don't have enough money, I need more, right? And so we try to fix it on a horizontal level. We try to make more money, we work harder, we get a second job, we get a raise, etc. And then we also visualize, we also meditate. So we also work on the vertical level, and we do all the energetic stuff as well. But both of those ways of being are, so on the first level, you're trying to solve the condition of not enough money by taking action. And then the second one is you're trying to solve the condition of not making enough money by working with your energy. In both cases, you're still trying to solve that same condition, right? One is more, I'm going to solve it by getting a job. The other one is more, I'm going to solve it by meditating, or you combine the two. I'm going to do both, and I'm going to visualize, I'm going to have a vision board and up my abundance vibration. We're still trying to solve the same problem. You're still trying to do the same thing, as I talked about earlier, is we're still trying to trust that you are going to deliver a certain result. So we're still trying to do all of that to solve the problem. So when we can acknowledge that there's a transcendent, that maybe there's another way of being, that's not really a problem. It may be a problem on the horizontal level and the vertical level, but as a whole, it's not really a real problem. The real problem is a thought, I don't have enough money. That's the problem. It's not that you don't have enough money, it's the thought that you don't know that you don't have enough money, or that you don't know that you do have money, right? So that's the thought. The thought is the symptom, not the problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, and with a lot of these things you've talked about, relationships or running a business, or, bringing in more abundance into your life, the word that keeps coming to me is like the ability to receive, right? The ability to receive, the willingness, feeling worthy to receive. I'd love to have you talk a little bit more about that, because that's such a big part of like the manifestation process. And even on the physical plane, we make lots of judgments about who's worthy for what kind of resources. So, tell us more about that, especially for empaths. What is the work that needs to be done to allow ourselves to receive what is meant for us?
Yeah. So when you trying to receive something in this hand, I need to let go of what I have in my hand so that I can receive, right? But so many times we're holding so tight to our concept of what we want, and how we're trying to control life, right? We're trying to survive. We're just trying to survive a lot of the times. A lot of us are in survival mode. We're just trying to survive, and we have to struggle and fight so hard to survive. And we're like so tight and we can't receive anything. And so we need to let go, and we need to open our palms, metaphorically speaking. We need to open our palms, but we need to open our space to receive. And I think like Nelson Mandela received while he was in prison, he received this state of pure bliss and this transcendent, right? And then Eckhart Tolle, when he was homeless, he received it. And it was just a moment of like letting go of, and maybe they didn't actually, Eckhart Tolle says he didn't do this on purpose. It just sort of came to him, right? He just sort of had this like total feeling of bliss while he was homeless and sitting on this bench and dirty and didn't even know what he was going to eat and broke. And you just sort of have this moment of total knowing that everything is okay, regardless of whether I'm broke or I'm homeless, I'm in prison, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that, I'm that. And so when you try to let go of your idea that being broke or having this struggle or whatever it is that your struggle may be, we want to let go of the idea that that's a big problem. We want to let go of the idea that that is what's holding you back from your joy. And when we can let go of that idea and let go of control a little bit, then we sort of relax into allowing the universe to show us what real joy is, what our true joy is. Not joy because we work so hard to get something and now we have little satisfaction, but real, pure, blissful joy in that present, that power of now that Eckhart Tolle talks about. So it's just a matter of, I know it's not as easy for you to think, or anybody listening, like, I have this problem, I'm just going to drop it and everything's going to be okay. I know it's not that easy, but try just a little bit of that idea, just like loosen the grip a little bit, that, you know what, it's okay that I'm broke. It doesn't mean that I'm unworthy. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. There's no shame in it. Whether I'm broke or whether I'm rich, it doesn't really matter. There's no shame either way, regardless. It's not a reflection of who I am as a soul. If we can just let go of that grip just a little bit, then we can let go a little bit more and a little bit more and a little more. And eventually we can just relax and open that flow and trust more. And the trust will come. And actually, it's not even about trusting at that point. When you fully relax, it's just about knowing. You just know. There's no need to trust and to take any leaps. You just know that it's there.
Yeah. And one thing that's, sort of coming forward for me is like, when we get into that perfectionist mode as we can, and we try to hold on and we try to make all the plans and we try to figure it all out. It really is a huge journey for sensitive people who process everything so deeply to say, I am beautiful, worthy, divine, all those things. And I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to see. I'm just going to be curious and explore and allow, and of course, take action, right? But yeah, I love what you're bringing here. It's such an important nuance for us to go even beyond maybe what we've already studied to this next level of transcendence, this other dimension.
Yeah, and I think we also put so much of our identity into our worth. And I'm all for teaching self-worth and deservability and loving ourselves and feeling worthy. I teach that. But I think, especially as highly sensitive people, because we overanalyze everything and we think everything down to the minute detail, we obsess. So we obsess so much about our self-worth. And I would like to pose a question like, what if you are not worthy? What if you just are not worthy? And I want everyone to be okay because they know and trust the transcendent enough to know that what if I'm not worthy? I'm still part of this whole process. I'm not saying you're not worthy at all. So don't get me wrong. But I'm saying is we hold on so tightly to, I need to be worthy. I need to feel worthy. I need to know my worth. I need to know my deservability. I need to know my value. But if we just let go of this whole need to know our own worth, and we just allow the thought to follow, what if I'm not, right? What if I'm not? We are. But we just allow the thought, what if I'm not? Then we can not be so tightly wound up, and we can just relax into the flow, because in the transcendent, we will know that we are worthy. But we're holding so tight to, I've got to be worthy, I've got to be worthy, I've got to figure out my worth, I've got to get rid of these limiting blocks. And it's so much struggle. It's just so hard. We're just struggling. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It's so hard because that beach ball that's full of air wants to pop up, but we're just like, no, you got to stay down. I've got to control everything. And we've just got to let go of that sense of control and let the beach ball go and let this idea of whether we're worthy or not worthy just drop. And then here we are. And then we enter this moment of pure presence that is not tied to any kind of an egoic identity of worth and not non-worth and validity and deservability. There's no egoic sense of that kind of identity anymore. And we realize that we are one with God and we are one with the universe, and it's all one.
Your work is so inspiring, Tree, and we could have a conversation for eons about this. It's so fascinating to hear this progression that you've made and then what you're teaching to your clients. And I'd love for you to just share, if people are really inspired by what you're saying here, how can they continue to connect with you after the summit is finished?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, treefranklin.com. Franklin is spelled with a Y, Franklyn. Actually, if you put L-I-N, it's okay. It redirects you, but you can go to treefranklin.com. I also have a book coming out. The book is Heart Diver. It's called Heart Diving. It's a process that I do to help you learn to trust in the universe more and trust in source and follow those intuitive hits. It's called Heart Diver, how to find, feel, and heal your heart's deepest wounds. And that way we can open up those wounds and we can flow more. And that's available on Amazon. You can also just go to my website, treefranklin.com, and all of my links for everything that I do is there.
Wonderful, wonderful. If there was just sort of one last piece of advice or an interesting question to leave everyone who's listening with, what would you like to share with us?
I would love for people to be more instead of thinking I don't have enough, I need more. I don't have enough money, need more money. Don't have enough love in my life, need more love. Don't have enough trust, need more trust, right? Instead of this whole not enough, need more concept, which is what we all live every single day. Don't have enough time, need more time so I can write or do this, right? We're always in this not enough, need more place. If we can let that go for a moment and we can just sit and be still in a forest where, your backdrop is in a forest would be great because we can feel the wisdom of the trees and we can tap into that natural intuitiveness of ours and that transcendent. If we can be more in that space, then the trust will follow naturally without us trying to trust so much. We just, relax a little more into that flow, into just this knowing and this presence, and then it'll come more. We don't have to try so hard.
Mm-hmm. And I encourage everyone who's listening to just think about whatever it is that you're holding, like that pen that's so strongly held, so rigid, and just say, what if I could just, release? What if I could just try, to release this a little bit. And it seems like the more that we can do that, the more that we can understand there's something so much larger and a plan and opportunities and timelines that are so much bigger than us. The happier and more content and more fulfilled and more worthy than we just automatically feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
I thank you so much for being here, sharing your wisdom. It's been such a pleasure to connect with you again. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you. You too. Thanks so much for having me again. I love these summits.